The whole joint finances topic comes up a lot, just generally in my friends group and you read online. Women all have different ways of managing their money with their family or with their partner. But we did some research at Money Supermarket, which found that the majority of people aren't really happy with the setup. My dad used to say, I want you to get a good enough education so that if you ever accidentally marry a jerk, you can afford to leave. And I do think this is one thing I talk about a lot when I talk about money is about my own personal experience, because I'm an oversharer. But I
love that about you, though.
Oh, thank you.
I think I'm a little bit of an oversharer too, so we could both overshare together. Hi, and welcome to Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I'm an independent financial advisor and wealth coach. I'm the director of Evolution Financial Planning, who is also our sponsor for today's show. Hey, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I've just got to let you know. Are you enjoying the shows? If you are and there's more you want to listen to, then check out our quiz. You'll find the link below. You can fill out these questions and it will basically tell you what area of your finances you should focus on. So it might be business, it might be you're getting divorced, it might be investing. There's about 9 categories. And what it will give you is a playlist to the relevant categories of all the shows we've done that apply to that area and that subject. So what it allows you to do is super fast learn about the subject that you need to know super quick without having to scroll through about over 130 episodes currently. So I hope you find that helpful, and do let us know your feedback leave us a review via your preferred platform. Thanks. Normally I have someone on board in interviewing. We're talking about things that I've maybe spoke to them about a lot. So there might have been an existing client, or I know them, we've gone for coffee and they had business chats. But today I have someone completely fresh and completely new. This is the wonderful Kara, who is from the Money Supermarket. And Kara is a personal finance insurance expert, award-winning journalist with 2 decades writing with all the different, or literally all of them. I've got a list and they're just too long. Daily Telegraph, Sunday Times, Good Housekeeping, Metro, the list goes on. Founder of Money Saving Blog, Your Best Friend's Guide to Cash, which I love that title. What made you come up with that name?
Well, it was when I had my first book. I called it because I wanted to explain money to the way I would to my girlfriends.
Yeah.
In a way. So I just came up with that one day on the train.
Love it. I love that. And you're also an author of Bargain Hunt, which came out in 2025. Mm-hmm. What's the book about? Obviously, apart from bargain hunting.
Yeah, it's money saving hacks and tips to save money every day. So I've written a column for the Metro since 2017 on money saving hacks. So I've covered all of them, and they're all in a book now.
Amazing. You can see why I want to get talking to this lady today and find out all her little hacks. But also, we're going to be sort of talking in a way that is very open. We're not just going to be talking about finances, but also about how it affects us, how it affects women specifically. And what I loved about you and your story is the list of your expertise, and the newspapers that you've written for are very, very long, but equally your own personal experience of life in general is really long. Mm-hmm. So you're a single parent. Mm-hmm. You've had HIV. Sorry, I was about to say the wrong thing then.
Yep.
Yeah. You've had IVF.
Yep.
You've been divorced.
I am divorced. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And you have ADHD.
Yep.
So what I love about you is that there's just such an eclectic mix of real life experiences that you can add into the pot, not just the credentials.
Thank you.
So, and also you're lovely along with that.
Well, even better.
You tick all the boxes.
Thank you.
And we've been going to be talking today about the rules for life, the top tip for women, rules for life. And we've got 4 main things we're going to focus on, but you don't know where we're going to end. Let's see how we go. It could be 25 by the end of this. So where I'd like to start is about managing joint finances. And just tell me about how you managed your finances with your previous partner and what changed for you after that. What did you learn from that experience?
Sure. The whole joint finances topic comes up a lot, just generally in my friends group and you read online. Women all have different ways of managing their money with their family or with their partner. But we did some research at Money Supermarket, which found that the majority of people aren't really happy with the setup. Because oftentimes the couple will set up the joint finances together, and then, as you know, circumstances change. So when I was married, we had separate bank accounts at first, and just put everything into like a joint for the bills or whatever. And it was, well, I was working full time, he was working full time, so it worked out well. But then after I had a baby, and then I was on maternity leave, and I went freelance because I'd been at the Telegraph for 8 years, and then went freelance after I had my daughter, and was working less because I was, kind of doing the
juggle.
Yeah, exactly. And but I remember thinking, hold on a second. I'm still like really working, just doing something different, but I had taken a massive pay cut. And so when we looked at it that way, we were like, well, as a family, we're a team. So we put all of our money in one joint bank account and did that up until we got divorced, really. Yeah.
So money wasn't the reason why you got divorced then?
No, just one of those things that happen. So
it wasn't a good match.
No, it wasn't. But I mean, it was good at the time. And I always say I would never regret it because I wouldn't have my daughter. So, but yeah, so now I do not have joint finances because I'm on my own.
It's all yours.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you think that some people might manage that where they don't really feel comfortable just putting it all into one pot, and they do want to be a little bit more, I don't know, I see this with couples sometimes where she's more of a spender, or vice versa. There's no gender specific on that one, but she's spending more and he's more, my husband, for example, he is likes to save, he likes security, whereas I'm more likely, my daughter wants this thing for whatever, or my son needs a new football kit, or that kind of thing. We tend to be the ones spending on those kind of more ad hoc expenditures. So I wouldn't necessarily want him to see how much I'm spending of what I would class as my money on those kind of things.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody that said, I don't want to do it that way? How else could you do it?
Well, I think the main thing is to make sure that you're doing it what makes you happy and what works with your partner. Because, if it's important to have these conversations, because if you don't, then, resentment can build up, or it can just become an issue. So some people put all of their money, both salaries go into one bank account. Some people put their salaries go into their own bank accounts, and then a portion of the money goes into a joint bills account. So then you still have your own spending money separately. And some people, I have a friend who she takes everything goes into a joint account, but she takes out her fund money and keeps it in her account. And so it's, sometimes we joke it's her allowance that she gives herself. She's quite generous, though, I would say. And it's just a case of making it work for you guys together. Yeah. But also it's not a one and done type topic. Yeah. So while it may work pre-kids, when you have kids, because oftentimes I was the one picking up the new school shoes or the uniform, or going out to yet another farm. And, you do spend money. But so I think it's just about kind of weighing it up and having these conversations, because what you don't want to do is not talk about something. But also, I do see some of the benefit of having joint bank accounts, because if, God forbid, something happened, you would want to have access to those funds. Yeah. So I feel like that's something that's really quite important too. Yeah. And a lot of times people say, I don't want to bring it up because it sounds like I'm trying to squirrel away money or something. And I'm like, maybe don't think about it. It's like if you break up, think about if something happened and somebody was incapacitated in the hospital, would you be able to pay all the bills? Would you have access to the savings? Yeah. And that's why it's kind of important too.
That's more important. I saw something on social media yesterday and I thought it was a really good question, the way it worded it. And it was around basically very stereotypical, but it can be the other way around, where male earning, say, $5,000 a month, female earning $2,000 a month, they're going to rent somewhere and the rent is $2,000 a month, for example. How would you split that? How's that fair? And I was looking at the comments and it was really interesting, the amount of different responses people had to it. And my answer was, it's a percentage. Yeah. So whatever the amount is, but that he's earning, say, 100% more, then he shouldn't, I'm not saying he pays all of it, but in that example, then he should pay a higher proportion.
Yeah.
Would you agree, or do you think there's another way?
No, I would agree with that, because I think it's like the proportion of your income. If 100% of your income is going towards your part of the rent or the mortgage, then you don't have any money left for anything else. So this is something that does come up a lot with particularly among my friends, to the point where I thought, let's do some research about it, see if everybody is happy or unhappy with their joint finances. So we created a calculator that allows you to put in your income and your partner's income and figure out the percentages, and then how you should split the bills. So,
I love that.
Yeah, just because it just makes it easier. It's one of these things that you don't have to start thinking, okay, well, that's 63%. And, we did the hard work for you.
Amazing. I love that. So can you just find that on the website?
At Money Supermarket. Yeah, it's a tool, and you just put household bills, bills calculator, and it'll help you figure it out.
I think that's absolutely great. And it does it on a percentage?
Yeah.
Well, even better.
Yeah. I mean, you can opt if you want it to. If you want it to say 75, 25, you can play with it as well, but it could do it absolutely on a percentage.
Yeah, so that's Becky approved then. I like the sound of that. And I think I think that's happening more now. You've got a lot more women going back to work. And actually I'm hearing a lot of males saying, well, I want you to pay your way. I'm not going to pay for everything. I'm hearing a lot more of that. Would you agree with that? Or
yeah, I do think that, but what I always point out, and I mean, I'm saying women or mothers, but it could be whoever is the main carer for the family. Many women also say, well, I'm not the breadwinner. So, for instance, I don't need income protection or life insurance.
Right.
But what I say is, you're doing unpaid work that if you weren't around, your other half would have to pay for somebody else to do, or else reduce their hours.
It's extortionate, the amount it would cost. I saw something the other day, and it was I've been in this industry 26 years, so I've seen insurance companies work out this calculation, and it's just getting higher. Yeah,
it is. And again, this is what I do at my job, is I think, well, that's interesting. How can we make it relatable? Or I always say it's like news you can use.
Yeah.
Because when you talk about money, people don't want to hear about how little money they have. They want to know how they can feel like they have more, or how to, what can I do about it?
Yeah.
So I always like to have everything have a news you can use angle. So we actually built an unpaid work calculator at Money Supermarket, which says, so we used ONS data to take all of the different costs of things across.
Office of National Statistics.
Yes, sorry. And so what you can do is you put in how many hours of childcare, how many hours of cooking, cleaning, laundry, driving around for like school run, etc. And you can put in how many hours you did, and then it'll tell you how much it would cost to replace it.
I will do that this weekend and show my husband.
That is exactly what all of my girlfriends have done. And
how did that go down for them in that process? What was the feedback?
Well, they were just like, wow, £24,000, like it's a lot.
Yeah,
and we
that's
also
quite low actually. I'd see it being a lot higher.
Yeah, well, it depends on how many children you have and that kind of thing. And that's in addition to the income that they're bringing in. So, if they were full-time at home, then it might be a bit different. But it's really efficient way of making a point.
What did their partners say?
Not much. No, they were just like, yeah. I mean, you can't argue with the Office of National Statistics.
No.
So, but we also looked at, because I'm at the age where, I'm 46, a lot of people are starting to get into the generation, or the sandwich generation, where they have elderly parents or caring commitments, but kind of on both sides of the scale. So they're children, but then they're trying to help with their parents. And we found that the sandwich generation are doing about £16,000 worth of unpaid work by just looking after other people.
Yeah, I was talking to a client this week, and one's just finishing uni, one's at first year uni. And she said, well, I feel like they're nearly off my hands, but we've still got a little way to go. And they're coming back home. A lot of university students are coming back home for at least a couple of years. Yeah. And they're not leaving until they're 24. So she's still got them. But then she's just went through the whole process of working out how to put her dad into a care home and navigating all of that, which is highly complex, like trying to work out what kind of care they need and who's going to provide it. And they would have to pay for it, but where's the resources come from, and managing the finances. And then the mum is on her own. She's then having to navigate being on her own, but then visiting her partner. And she's literally emotionally managing one end of the scale, one at university or two at uni, one's just left, and then the parents at the same time.
Yeah.
It's a lot to navigate.
It's a lot. And, I really sympathize for anyone in that, because also I remember I used to say this when I got divorced. I'm like, I don't know how to get divorced. I never did it before. But so when you're also in that situation, you're like, I don't know how to deal with care homes. I've never had to deal with care for my parents, and it's an emotional time as well as a complex time.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's important for us to think of, well, if we weren't doing it, who would?
Yeah.
And how would we pay for it? Or how would whoever was left pay for it?
Yeah.
And I'm not just talking about, life insurance if you die, but if you become unwell, if you are, you need to focus on your own health for whatever reason, what's the backup plan?
How would you navigate that? Definitely. So when you just sort of finishing up on like managing joint finances or managing from a partner perspective, how, just sort of dipping back into the divorce process, a lot of women that I speak to really struggle with that initial piece of financial disclosure in the divorce process, where there's people hiding money, there's a lot of dishonesty around, well, just because you haven't worked for 35 years, for example, and it's my money, it's my pension. Have you sort of got any advice, either personally or professionally, to women that might be listening that are considering or at that early stages?
I think the thing is with, I was quite lucky. We had a quite amicable divorce. So
let's celebrate that for a second, because that's a big deal.
It was really quite, it couldn't have been, we parted as friends.
Amazing.
But I hear so many horror stories.
It's scary.
Yeah. And I remember, I'm a finance expert, but I didn't know how to be an adult by myself financially, because I'd been with him since we were 24. Suddenly I'm like the sole breadwinner, and I'm running a house, and I have a mortgage and a child. And I thought, God, and I remember panicking, thinking, I don't know what to do here. And so, and I thought, thank God I have a good job, because I'm not dependent on anything from him. I was able to buy him out, etc. But if you don't have that, makes you feel very vulnerable. And I do think that you hear a lot of men say, well, it's my pension, I worked. Well, yeah, but who did everything else? You see that a lot. If you're a stay-at-home mom, or you're running or helping build the business, that a lot of, in the background and contributing in different ways. And I think it's really kind of narrow-minded for partners to think, well, this is my money, and that's your money. And, it creates a lot of animosity amongst people in couples, whether they're separating or whether they're together. Because then it's like, well, if someone's doing the food shop, you buy things you don't necessarily enjoy yourself, but you buy them for your partner.
Yeah.
And, it's not like that's my money, so I'm not going to buy you Marmite because I think it's disgusting.
You just buy the Marmite.
Yeah. And so it's a slippery slope.
So what made you go back to work when you had your first? Obviously, you probably went through probably a lot of anguish to have your daughter. A lot of people that have IVF, they've gone through a lot of struggles. The cost, not only that, but there's other, obviously, clients that I've come across that have been trying for years and unfortunately lost children as well in that process. So, I have clients that come to me and say, I need some more money, please, I'm paying for my IVF, it's costing so much money, and it's such an awful lot of work. So, and it's not to say that if you fall pregnant quickly and then you have to work so hard that, well, you should stay at home with your child because you've spent all this time and money, you wanted it so badly. You chose to go back to work. The two don't really correspond in my mind, so I just want to clear that up. But what made you want to go back to work and continue working? It sounds like your partner was financially supportive.
I think I just really love my job. I enjoy what I do. And it was very flexible because I was freelancing. So I, did 1 or 2 days a week, and it gave me a bit of routine because I did do 12 months for maternity leave, and I had a whale of a time. I absolutely loved it. I just always, it was never a question of whether I would go back to work. It was just a question of how. And I thought I wanted to keep my toe in, the waters, I guess. I don't know what the metaphor is. I
That's
wanted
correct,
to keep
yeah.
my foot in the game so that when she did go to school,
you wasn't have that gap of
Yeah.
employment, which is very much harder for women to get back into the
Yeah.
industry or back into an employment, often needing less power because you've had your time out, but you're actually asking them to be more flexible.
Yeah, it is, absolutely. And so I had previously worked at the Daily Telegraph for many years, but I didn't want to be in a newsroom setting because you can't walk out the door if the news breaks because you have to do the school run. And I knew that's...
War, stop for a second.
Yeah, I've got to go to
do-
nursery. So I was very lucky I took voluntary redundancy, so that helped soften the transition into freelance. And yeah, I never kind of looked back. And then when my daughter went to school, so I just have the one.
Yeah.
And when she started reception, I remember thinking, oh my God, it's like free childcare and I can work full time. And that's when I'm like, I'm going to start the blog. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. And then I realized school only goes until like 3.
So it only actually goes so quick.
Yeah. And then
have a cup of tea, hoover, time to go and pick them up again.
Yeah. And I was like, wow, this really isn't full time.
No.
So I was able kind of to work around that. And then I got separated a couple of months before COVID happened.
Gosh, at least you did it before.
Yeah, exactly.
Got that out of the way.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah. Didn't have to spend a year in each other's company.
Yeah, I know. And a lot of people did happen to to people.
If you're somebody that is not sure what to do with their finances, maybe you're working and you're not sure what to do with the bonuses you've got at work, or maybe you started a business and you've got profits and you're not sure what you should be doing to enable you to A, pay yourself more, or B, potentially retire earlier. Maybe you're somebody that's thinking about, do I overpay on the mortgage? You've received some inheritance. You've got lots of questions around your finances and what to do next. Then check out Evolution Financial Planning, who are regulated independent financial advisors and financial planners that can help you make some of those big decisions in life.
And so I was able, what did change is that when, I was getting divorced, I didn't want to be freelance anymore because I wanted the certainty of an income.
Yes.
I wanted some routine. I didn't want to have to chase people up to pay me all the time. And, freelance rates don't really rise. They really don't. So while I was making a good income, I didn't feel relaxed in it. It was just a lot of extra work, like the admin of it all, I guess. So I was just out of the blue, I got a call to go into a job. But luckily, because of COVID, working from home became normal.
So it changed.
And so women like me who are, a single parent who wants to be at home, still do the school run and the drop off, but then I can go back to work afterwards. Well, it worked out so well. So it meant I didn't have to be like a bum on a seat Monday to Friday in an office. And I feel like that was a real game changer.
Definitely, yeah.
And during lockdown, because everybody was broadcasting from home, and like I was doing lots of radio and TV, because nobody needed to be in the studios at that point. So it felt like a real opportunity for me
to actually accelerate.
Yeah.
I've got 2 questions or 2 things I want to sort of go off on. One's a bit of a heavy one, so I'm just going to sort of link into it a little bit.
Sure.
First one is around I don't come from what I would call a privileged background. I didn't go to university, and I did start working in a bank when I was quite young, and I sort of created my own opportunities. Had it not been for that, I would probably have sort of done sort of quite lower wage kind of jobs. And I think when you have a career that you love, or you're being paid well, and it's you quite like it, it's something you're good at, then it's much easier for women to say, okay, well, I'm going to go back and do that. But for many people I speak to, on the mums on the school run, and for a lot of women, they are doing jobs that they just don't even like. They might be cleaners, they might be waitress staff, they might be behind a bar, in the retail, and they're not doing that because they love it. They're doing it because it's bringing money into the house. And for a lot of families now, they actually need 2 incomes.
Oh, 100%, yeah.
So that's sort of having maternity leave and then taking time out. If they've got an opportunity not to work and actually stay at home with the kids, because I'm not saying I wasn't maternal, but when I fell pregnant, all my friends were like, why are you having a baby?
Yeah. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
You're going to have a child?
Yeah.
I was offended. I was
Yeah,
like, yes,
fair.
I can do that.
You're
Yes.
like, oh, okay.
So, I mean, give me a plant, I will kill it. Give me an animal, absolutely fine.
Mm-hmm.
Child, depends how much,
Yep.
how good it is, really.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole sort of piece around, I don't know if you've seen it online an awful lot, around like a trad
wife.
like so traditional wife.
Yeah.
And more recently, the Louis interview, the Manosphere.
Mm-hmm.
That whole sort of, you saw these women playing lower roles.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm not stepping into that kind of area where I'm suggesting that the man's telling you what to do, because that's a whole other level of bad as far as I'm concerned. But I'm talking about women who traditionally want to stay at home, not because their partner have manipulated them, but they are maybe a little bit had less opportunities, haven't had a career that they love, and maybe are just always just wanted lots and lots of children. The girl at school that was like, when I grow up, I'm going to be a mummy. That's what they wanted.
Yeah.
Now we're talking about financial independence. My whole ethos is around women having financial independence. I chose not to. My husband has and did earn more money. I will say, not straight away. I actually earned more than him. When I fell pregnant, I was made redundant at 14 weeks pregnant, and I earned more money than he did. But there come a point after my maternity leave. My daughter was born in 2008, which was when the recession hit.
Yes.
So there were no jobs in financial services, so I had a few years out. So when I was then going back into I was desperate to work. it wasn't me sitting at home. I needed something mental stimulation, probably because I'm mental, quite honestly. And I'm going,
sorry, I didn't mean to agree.
I'm not mental. I'm joking. And he said, "Oh, just stay at home, Becky. I literally can hear the words ringing through like my mind. It's fine, just stay at home, Becky." And he was earning not as much as he earned now, and the whole time I could have financially been taken care of. But at first he would give me an allowance, like, if you like. So rather than having a joint account where all the money goes into, we had a joint account where he put a lump into, all the bills went out of there, and then he would transfer a certain amount. He is extremely generous. It wasn't, he never questioned what I spent any of the money on. If I needed more, he would just literally say, "Here you go." He'd never, even now, if I needed something, the vet bill, whatever, he never questions money at all. But he's very generous, and some people aren't in that kind of privileged position.
No, they're absolutely not.
And that anxiety around money can come out in relationships. I'll get to my point in a second.
That's okay.
But for a lot of women who then do stay at home, they don't work, it's out of choice. And we're then saying you need to be financially independent. How do you navigate that?
Well, it feels almost like you can't win.
You can't.
Yeah. And I think, I would have loved to have 4 kids. I really would. I'm lucky I got the one, I will say, because I know a lot of people don't get that lucky with IVF. But I think that it's the thing that I think women should always have the freedom to do is to make their own decisions. And if you want to be at home, you can be at home, because I know how hard it is. Like, it's not easy. I couldn't be a trad wife if I wanted to. I'm a terrible cook.
Beans on toast?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's shocking. But I remember when my husband and I separated, my neighbor said, "What will you eat?" And they're Sri Lankan, and she's always sending me over lovely food. It's
nice.
I'm so lucky.
Yeah. Do you still live next door to her now?
Yeah.
Nice.
Still do. And she knows how much I appreciate it.
Yeah.
So I feel like every now and then she sends over a nice tray. It's really sweet.
She's a bit sorry for you, doesn't she?
Yeah, I think so. But I think if whatever you want to do, but then the problem is it's like, how can you protect yourself? So
exactly.
I grew up in a family where, we weren't particularly privileged, but my parents both went to university. So they were a teacher. They met at teachers college. So my dad was a headmaster and my mom owned a private nursery, but we weren't loaded, wealthy, anything, just normal family. But I was brought up that you go to university. It's not where will you, it's where. And that, because that was a different time as well. And so I did go to university. I had a great time while I was there. So much fun. I even stayed a little longer than I needed to because
You told your parents you needed to.
well, I think I didn't plan my coursework properly. So, yeah. But then when I went to journalism school, it was what I wanted to do, and I did really well. But yeah, so I enjoyed myself at uni. I don't say I necessarily learned a lot in the undergrad, but life lessons. But then I think, if you do want to stay at home, what I was always brought up to be, my dad used to say, I want you to get a good enough education so that if you ever accidentally marry a jerk, you can afford to leave.
Yeah.
And, that's really worked out well. And that's what I want for my daughter. But whether it's doing because I know a lot of women that are in really high flying jobs that are miserable, and I feel like it doesn't necessarily equate to the money. It's about if you're not happy doing something 40 hours a week, then do something else. And if it's that you want to be at home, I mean, that's such a hard job. I don't know who thinks it's easy because, going to work, when I went back, it felt like a treat because I could just not have to worry about anybody
Think about
else.
one thing rather than 25
Yeah, exactly.
things. Yeah.
But it's a case of protecting yourself because also, and we often talk about protecting yourself as a woman in case your marriage ends or your relationship ends, but also like what happens if they become sick or they die. And I feel like I'm always talking about that, but you have to protect yourself, not just for the relationship ending. It could end for another reason.
What kind of things could women do then if they're we've mentioned one, having joint accounts, have access to that, not if you were to separate. I think I always talk to my clients about having financial dates, like a date night, and I make a joke out of it, especially if I'm asking them to do a budget planner. Yeah. And you're like, really sorry. One of them loves it because they love a spreadsheet, and the other one's like, oh my God, this could be more painful. Yeah. So, and I sort of say, buy a really nice glass of wine, a bottle of wine, and sit down and just have a look through and just talk about your priorities and talk about your future and talk about where you're spending and does that align to what you're looking to spend your money on. And it does bring them together and having those open conversations. And then it's being really honest and transparent about what you have got in place, what other investments are. Whereas for a lot of women, they might just be completely disinterested and he pays the bills and I'm not really bothered and he sorted that out and staying in my lane. I don't need to, that I do the house, he does the finances, I don't get involved with that. That's fine, I feel. However, it doesn't mean that you should have no understanding of it because that's just complete abdication and you're then taking your percentage of responsibility. So there's some of the things that I would normally say to clients. Anything you'd add to that?
I think it's really important to have these conversations because if you don't know how would you pay the bills if they weren't around? Would you be able to find the money if you needed to? I mean, I don't know if you've ever had to be handle probate. So when my father-in-law passed away very suddenly, and I was helping my mother-in-law, who I still call my mother-in-law because we didn't get divorced. And
I've told my husband that if we ever separated, she's my mum.
Yeah,
as well.
exactly. So I still got her, but helping her through that process because a lot of things were in his name. Luckily, she had money in ISAs in her own name. Yeah. But it took 9 months. He died in November and it was July before she got access to all of the money.
Yeah, it's a long time.
Yeah, and so she was living off her savings and he had everything lined up perfectly. There was nothing hidden, but it was like the day-to-day and the uncertainty of that. So I think it's important to have these meetings, the chats, talk about what you're doing. And if you're saving, to both have the money going into both savings accounts, not just having all the savings in one person's name if you have an ISA. Yeah. Instead of, say, if you're going to put £100 a month away, put 50 into each one. So you both have your own access. Yeah. And I feel like if you talk about it with your partner in what would we do in an emergency, rather than I'm trying to save money so I can leave you, it just kind of like takes the
heat off.
Yeah, the heat off. And
awkward.
And I do think this is one thing I talk about a lot when I talk about money is about my own personal experience because I'm an oversharer. But I
love that about you, though.
Well, thank you.
I think I'm a little bit of an oversharer too, so we could both overshare together.
Yeah, and so I feel like what I like to do is talk about experiences and then you think to yourself, well, what would you do if that happened to you? And I remember very clearly when I was 12, my father got very, very sick. He had had a heart attack, multiple actually, but he thought he was dehydrated on the golf course.
Oh my gosh.
And such a man, he just drank apple juice.
Yeah, having a heart attack, but I'm just, a bit dehydrated.
I know. And so he was very unwell and he was inoperable. He was in intensive care. And I remember my mom trying to figure out how to pay the bills because back then, they had a checkbook. It was 1992.
Yeah.
So it was just one more thing that she had to figure out in a really uncertain time.
Yeah.
And she said, I never want you girls to grow up and not know how to handle the money.
Handle it, yeah.
And so I personally handled all of the long-term planning and the short-term planning, but it was important to me when I was married that he was aware where all of the money was and what we were spending it on, et cetera, because if I couldn't do it, I would still want somebody to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So I think it's having these conversations. And I do find a lot of people, one person loves to do a budget and the other person hates it.
Yeah.
And I think it just can create friction, but you can go hands-free with this kind of thing as well. So there's an app called the Emma app.
Okay.
And you can download it. Usually I think you can get a month's free trial, but you'll have to double check it.
Okay.
But when I was married, I remember my ex-husband being like, oh, well, we only spend, let's say, £80 a week on the big shop, on the food shop. So it's 320, and he was like trying to work out the budget. I wasn't going to lie. I may have pointed out that I do this for a living, but hey-ho. And I was like, there's no way that's what we spend a month on food. It's more. And he's like, no. So I downloaded this app and we had a joint account. And what it does after a month is it analyzes where you're spending your money. Yeah. And lo and behold, because he was going to the Tesco Express on the way home from work.
Weekly shop, those little drop-ins.
Yeah, and just picking up bits. Every time he went to get milk, he would get, a few other bits.
Yeah.
And it was doubling the food bill. And then I was like, I don't need to say anything. You can just, it's all here in the app.
Yeah.
It did highlight that I was spending a lot more money at Amazon and Boots as well.
Okay.
But, that's always a good reckoner for me as well. Like, how many mascaras do I need?
Yeah, sure.
But he didn't really seem to notice that as much. But it was a really good way to kind of analyze your spending. Yeah. And so I think sometimes if you do that, you can...
It's not the onus on the person, it's the app telling you.
Exactly.
Like a third party.
Yeah.
Go and blame the app.
Yeah.
I love that. Going back to what you was talking about with your dad, I've had a client who had a stroke and I got a phone call. That phone call is shocking. When you have these phone calls as a financial advisor, I've had them before where someone's passed away or they've been diagnosed with cancer.
Yeah.
And the question they always say is, what do we have in place, Becky? And as an advisor, your heart just sinks because you go at that point in time, you don't exactly remember a conversation from maybe 5 or 10 years ago, and you probably had 20 to 30 conversations as to what exactly they're insured for. And that in itself is quite shocking. But with the stroke situation, it wasn't about insurance, it was about the access to money. And he was in a drug-induced coma, so he couldn't speak, he couldn't sign anything, he couldn't speak to anybody, he physically couldn't do anything. And she sort of had to get his phone and put his thumb against his phone so she could just see what he had. And it turns out there was things and stuff going on that nothing serious, but things she had to fix because they weren't having that transparency at times, or maybe it just wasn't as obvious or as bad as what she thought it was. Yeah. And then it was like, what do we do with the car? He's got extra car, he's got extra motorbikes, I've got to sell those. There was so much. The question was, how do I pay these bills? Where are they coming out of? Where's the money going? And luckily, they had an investment pot, and he'd done very well in the past with another job and stuff like that. And we'd put it into a joint investment account. So I was able to basically take a lump sum and say to her, don't worry about it, it's here. And every month, you're going to have this amount hit your account every month. And what that did for her in that moment of selling cars, older children she was having to sort of navigate. Her husband had a stroke. It was literally on a bed going, you know, is he going to be able to get out of this bed? There were other things to be worrying about.
Yeah.
The last thing you need is notifications on your phone binging going, direct debit has been cancelled, or your direct debit has bounced. It puts her mind at rest. So personal experience, whether it's, when you talk about protection in our industry, we talk about insurance. But there's certain things, as we've talked about with women, that protection they can put in place to allow themselves to give themselves longer term security if they're needing that, in terms of maybe they're not working or they're in a relationship where they want more transparency. Equally, if you're then worried about something happening to either one of you, but then you do actually then start to move on to the actual insurances that you can get. So life insurance, income protection, critical illness or serious illness, depending on which insurance company. But I know you're a massive, you really like income protection.
Yeah, I do. I know.
We spoke about this before, and I was just really surprised about how much you're geeking out.
I know. And, you know, yeah, I love income protection. Can you surprise I'm single? But yeah, well, the reason why I feel passionate about income protection is because I grew up in a household where bad luck didn't just happen once, it happened twice. So my dad had to stop working he was a headmaster at a secondary school. I was 12, he was only 42. He never was able to go back to work because he was inoperable. Yeah. And he was at one point given, like, they thought maybe 3 months type thing. He's still alive.
Wow.
And Frank looks great. Like, both my mum and dad retired in their 40s due to ill health. My mum has MS. And
that's a lot.
Yeah, and she was misdiagnosed for years. I mean, it was the 80s and 90s. They thought she had a multiple of other things. And
yeah, did it even exist back then, MS?
Yeah, they thought she had fibromyalgia and all these different things. But once she found out what she had, then she was able to treat it, you know, the way. So they're both really doing well, you know, living their best lives of the retired. But fortunately,
I'm going to pause you there.
Yeah.
I know, mid-sentence. And we're going to take a little bit of a break. And we're going to slow things down, and we're going to actually catch you back up on Monday. If you listen to this live on Friday, our next release is going to be coming out on Monday as a second part series. So if you're listening back later on, then what you can do is that you could just skip on to the next one, and we will carry on with the conversation. Thank you for joining us today at Accelerating Your Wealth with your host, myself, Rebecca Robertson. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do subscribe and let us know in the comments any of your thoughts.